Okay, some of my final thoughts on Liberty or Death, the American Insurrection, the coin game by Harold Buchanan. We'll start off by saying I'll probably do two videos of this. The first one, I'm just going to talk about Liberty or Death. The second one, I think I'll probably do a second one talking just about coin in general. So to start off, this game when I played it reminded me of my freshman year in college to some degree, or this flashback as I was playing it. And at the time, my best friend, Scott, who was a economics major, of course I was a liberal arts major, we wanted to take a class together for the second semester of our freshman year. And we decided to take a class, history class on the American Revolution. And it was great. It was at 11 a.m. in the morning, so if we figured, hey, we'll go to class, then we'll go to lunch afterwards. We'd usually try and eat lunch together, and we'll talk about what we learn in the class. And we really like to discuss topics, history, current events, as you often do when you're in college and you're that age. And we had different perspectives, but as good friends, our discussions were never, heated or at least heated to the point where, we would get mad at each other. He was more liberal in his outlook. I was more conservative. So we thought this would be a great thing for us. It would fulfill one of his having to take a liberal art class for his major. And of course I could take this for my major regardless. So we went to class, and the professor started out the class with a breakdown of, hey, this is a lecture-only class. There's no discussion. There's three things you're going to be graded on: a midterm paper, a final paper, and a final exam. You don't have to go to class. I don't take attendance. And here's also what your papers are going to be on. Your midterm paper is going to be about the plight of the loyalists in the revolution, and then your final paper is going to be on a minority group and how the revolution negatively impacted that minority group. So, okay, right away, kind of getting the gist of what the class is going to be about. So then he started right away lecturing, and it was that the American Revolution was an unjust cause by the rebellion, that the rebels were ungrateful, disloyal, that the British were treating them well, and that they were basically rebelling for their own self-interest, not for any greater purpose, except to increase their own power and prestige and this sort of thing. And that was the class. And that was Now, on one hand, that could have been interesting and opened up some interesting discussion, but there was no discussion in class, and there was never any views presented by the professor on anything but, the negatives of the rebels in the war. So, we weren't learning about, Benjamin Franklin or George Washington, except that they were bad guys. They were slave owners. Or with Benjamin Franklin, he was, just this, self-absorbed egomaniac and all this kind of thing. And so there was never any opposite view given. And so instead of it being, something where we were learning about the campaigns and the interesting personages of the war and the things that drove the war, it really just became kind of this, heavily emphasized political thesis of the professor. And it was all about having to agree with him. And in fact, my midterm paper about the Loyalists, I put some points in there, concerning the, some of the positives of the rebels, and I got a C on it. And he, highlighted those things and said, no, that's not it. You're not paying attention in class, basically. So for my final paper, I think I picked actually the Indians as a minority group to write about, and I just regurgitated what he said and the injustices the rebels or the patriots laid on him, and I got an A on it, of course, because this was going with his thoughts on the war. So this game reminds me of that in the sense that the designer, Harold Buchanan, who, by the way, is a really nice guy. If you see him on Board Game Geek, he's very, very nice guy. And I don't want to make it seem as harsh as it probably sounds, but this game kind of goes with his thesis of, hey, the Patriots were concerned, or this, first of all, that this was a four distinct sided conflict, okay, that the French, the Indians, the Patriots, and the British all had their own individual goals, and they were distinct from each other. That's the first thing. The second thing it presents is that the Patriots were as concerned with fighting the Indians as they were with fighting the British. And those are really the two main kind of theses that drive the game. And the problem I have with it is not even that, for example, I don't have a problem at all that the Indians are a separate faction. And in fact, that makes it kind of interesting. I do have a bigger problem, though, that the French are a separate faction, mainly because of how it affects the gameplay. And this is via the victory conditions. Okay, so basically the Patriots, they do not want to fight battles in this game. And you could say, well, yeah, that seems historically reasonable, right? That, you know, they were outclassed by the British Army and they were trying to avoid battles because they lost most of the ones they fought. But the thing is, the Patriots don't want to win battles in this, because if they win a battle, they help the French more than they help themselves. Okay, and that doesn't seem reasonable. The second is that early in the war, the Patriots were trying to win a battle, just to get the French to come in actively on their side. This was their strategic goal early in the war. They realized they needed someone like the French to come in and support them. Otherwise, they probably were going to lose. Okay, so their strategy was to, you know, try and find a battle or a fight they could win, or at least show that they were able to stand up against the British. However, in this game, you don't want, as the Patriot player, the French to enter the game as a full-time participant. You're quite happy to have them on the sidelines, so you're not going to pursue the objective of, hey, I want France to enter on my side and get their military involved because this will help, you know, the rebellion be successful. In fact, you want the opposite, because the longer the French are on the sidelines, the more benefits they're going to give you in terms of resources and troops of your own. Once they enter the war, they're no longer going to give you those benefits. And in fact, they're going to be just actively looking to accomplish their own goal, which is to cause casualties to the British. You may even get in a situation, you very likely, that you'll want to lose battles as the Patriots because of the fact that the victory points, if it's too much, if the British have lost too many more than the French and Patriots, this is good for the French. They're probably going to win the game. So you may want to fight a battle you lose. And that's certainly not the mindset of the Patriots historically. You know, Washington was a very aggressive commander. He was a smart commander because he understood, especially early in the war, that the Patriot Army, Continental Army, couldn't stand up to the British Army in a regular fight, but he was looking for those advantages where he could make a fight out of it, you know, such as at Princeton, Trenton, you know, Monmouth later, and Germantown. But in this game, you'll never want to pursue an offensive war. You don't want to pursue war at all with the Patriots or battles. And also, one of the weird things, though, with that is that the British forces don't have an advantage over the Patriot forces in combat, which is a little strange. I get that the game's kind of a higher up level take on it, but still, you know, the British regulars certainly early in the war were far superior to the Continental Army, and that's really not reflected at all in the game. But again, that's not really a big gripe of mine. My big gripe is really the way the four sides in the victory conditions force the action that really doesn't seem historically accurate at all as far as what the sides were looking to do. And I think the primary reason is, well, I mean, there's the two things. Again, this thesis of the French being a separate side. Well, yeah, they had their separate goals, but their separate goals were really more global. When it came to just the colonies, I mean, their goal was get the British out of the colonies, have them lose the colonies. Which was the same goal as the Patriots. And that was really their only goal. I mean, sure, they would like to win military victories, but I don't think it particularly mattered to the French, you know, as much as let's win the war as quickly as possible. Let's, you know, get the British out and we'll have our, you know, revenge for losing Canada, and we'll weaken Britain overall, both in terms of their, you know, power and their prestige. So, you know, really, to me, the Patriot and French goals in the real war were so aligned here in this theater that having them as separate powers just creates what I see as problems in the gameplay. Now, with the Indians, for example, with the Patriots and Indians, the problem I have here is that, yes, the Patriots and the rebels certainly did expeditions, the Sullivan expedition being, a famous one, but that came very late in the war. And that came at a time when basically in the North, there was a stalemate. The British were entrenched in New York City, and the Patriot Army couldn't have attacked them, but the British Army was not interested in going out and engaging the Patriots. So, Washington sending off some of the Continentals to go put down the Iroquois, did show, in fact, that, the Patriots were interested in, limiting the Indians and destroying their power. But I think this game takes it to the extreme of saying this was really, as important as getting, themselves free from the British. And I don't think that, that was the case at all. And how it affects gameplay is you'll send the Continental Army out into the Northwest because, well, I want to destroy villages. That's how I'm going to win, as well as, getting support and opposition. And, early in the war that, the Patriots were more or less just concerned of holding on, building an army, and trying to keep the British from overrunning all the colonies. And so, it felt very much like this is a thesis of maybe taking that thesis too far, in a sense. Yes, the Indians are ignored generally in the history, but I think this game takes that to an excess. And certainly with the French, I think having the French as a separate power, unless you can make the victory conditions different, they were just too intertwined with the Patriots. Historically, they were in this conflict. They had their differences as far as strategy, but the ultimate strategy for both was, hey, let's defeat the British. And they were both working towards that goal. So, as a 4-player game, I can't really recommend this game. It's not for me at all, because it just doesn't seem anything like the mindsets of particularly the Patriots, the French, in how they were fighting the war, and how they were trying to achieve their goals. Now, as a 2 or 3-player game, it'll do much better. You can have the Patriots and the French as one side, and then you kind of combine their victory conditions. So that makes it, make a lot more sense to me anyway, in how the game plays. And you can do a 2-player game, the Indians and the British, and then the French and the Patriots together. And that makes a little more sense. And the next time I play this, I'll probably do it as a 3-player game, and see how that works out. And if I find that more satisfying as far as a, kind of a simulation of the conflict. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the game. Anyway, I will come back. I'll do another video just kind of on coin in general and kind of my thoughts on it. All right.